Hey, let's talk about two different grinder builds. Grinder's a perk deck, and two different grinder builds was my first two different builds video, and was an attempt to get back to using perk decks I used to love at a time that I was mostly using Anarchist. Like 67% of my skill sets were Anarchist. Two different grinder builds is bad. Well, it's not terrible. Half of it is, but whatever. We can do better. I'm not going to take the original video down, but I did want to kind of show how far we've come and work towards actually providing, actually usable grinder builds. So how about we clean things up? The first build we did in two different grinder builds way back when was a crit and dodge based AKimbo build. I think that's a good starting point, but we can do something a little bit different with it as well. Let's start with our weaponry this time. I don't know why I started with skills first. So for my primaries, I'm packing the AKimbo cross-kill guards. You can bring the Shimano 88s and the Brunettis if you really desire, but I personally wanted the higher accuracy and stability of the guards and the slightly higher pickup rate of the not Brunettis. On these guards, we have our prerequisite IPSC compensators, IPSC. Did they ever actually release how you're supposed to pronounce that? Micro lasers, bling grips, extended mags, and these finger destroyers. Really, I don't know what these are supposed to accomplish. These look like they'd hurt. For my secondary, I wanted something accurate to take out long-range enemies, and I could have brought the cross-kill, a Bronco, a broomstick, but I personally felt like I wanted to bring the Parabellum. 100 accuracy, great damage, and a relatively snappy reload, all things considered. Reinforce that barrel, slap a sight on this bad boy, and we're set for out-sniping snipers, nice and simple. We won't be using any melee skills, so in this case, the kunai is probably one of your best bets. I'm going to use a syringe, it's the same thing. I'm also using Molotovs in this build, as the lasting Sea of Flames does a bunch of damage over time. My perk deck is Grinder. I don't think I needed to say that, but I said it. Lastly, I'm opting for the Light Ballistic Vest. In the original build, this was the suit, but the Light Ballistic Vest is 5 less dodge, but 4.5 times the armor value. That just seems like a great trade-off to me. For our core skills, I've opted for Aced Combat Doctor and Inspire, and then over in Enforcer we have Aced Die Hard, Basic Shock and Awe, Bullseye, and Iron Man to beef up the vest, Aced Steady Grip with Basic Fire Control and Lock and Load to shoot on the move, Aced Duck and Cover, Inner Pockets, and Basic Shockproof, Sneaky Bastard, and Low Blow for 10% more dodge, 30% more crits, and 6 more concealment to bump us down to 4 detection risk, and then I've Aced 9 Lives, Akimbo, Gun Nut, One-Handed Talent, and Basic Trigger Happy to beef up the pistols. All in all, we got a bit of team play, a little bit of armor, a bit of dodge, and quite a bit of damage. How does it all stack up? Pretty darn well. Well, you might have to reload the guards a little more often than the Shimanos or the Brunettis. With this setup, they're at 100 accuracy when hip firing, and if you need more firepower, say to one-shot a sniper or a taser to quickly dispatch of a bulldozer, you can use the Parabellum to do so. Our melee stuns enemies so we can push past them while also giving us a couple grinder stacks, and Molotovs are a great panic button solution for when the going gets tough. The major worry for me with this build on Deathwish is trying to square off against Vulcan Dozers. They can out-DPS you, they can out-DPS pretty much anything. So just do what you can to avoid them and let your teammates with more powerful weaponry take care of them. Maybe fight them at a distance with Parabellum crits. That might help. They have too much health. Overkill, they have too much health. But otherwise, you had a pretty great grinder build for Mayhem and below, and a pretty alright choice on Deathwish provided you use your cover. In the original video, I called the crit SMG build old news and kind of dismissed it, which that's not... No, don't do that in videos. Sure, there's literally a million grinder builds with pistols or SMGs, but there's a billion ways to run grinder. There's a billion ways to run any perk deck. So just give it a shot, experiment. Make changes to this. This is a basis for experimentation and creativity. This isn't an end-all be-all. This never was. Speaking of experimentation and creativity, Flame Grinder. What was that trying to accomplish? I don't know. I also called for a guitar solo and explosions in the original script. Can we do that now? Oh, lovely. Flame Grinder is probably the worst build I've ever run on this channel. I mean, I ran an LMG build back when LMGs were not buffed, and that one wasn't good. But Flame Grinder was terrible. We've got an explosive and an incendiary weapon, none of which can reliably kill a bulldozer, and for whatever reason, I decided my incendiary shotgun would be the breaker. With a Dragon's Breath shotgun, you're really not caring about the propellant damage, you're caring about the damage over time, which is usually much, much greater. And for that reason, you want a low propellant damage shotgun, because it can pick up and hold more shells. But when that year's Crime Fest rolled around, we got the Grim 12 gauge, which is a very weak but very compact auto shotgun for your secondary slot that takes tremendously well to Dragon Breath rounds. Let's also give it the horizontal leveler, or the shark tooth nozzle, an accuracy reduction boost, an auto fire lock, a laser, and the Big Brother magazine will be set. 0 accuracy means we're spreading these pellets around rather thin, so we can ensure that we set as many cops on fire as we can. Wow, that sounded really terrible to put like that. If you're playing the console version and you don't have the Grim, you could run the Goliath with close by aced. You could, if you really have to, run like the Street Sweeper. But if you have access to close by aced, there's no reason not to run the Goliath. It's a bit weak, but 20-something shells in a magazine. For our primary, I opted for another shotgun this time, and that does kind of leave us a bit open to snipers, but DMRs are in a bit of a rough place. Snipers typically don't take to Grinder all that well, as you need kills spaced out about 1 per every 0.4 seconds, and Grinder deals with many kills in one shot around 1 per second. And for most of the light rifles, LMGs, and akimbo options, to get to 100 accuracy, you need standard boosts like Steady Grip, which tightens up the cone of damage the Grim puts out. So with that said, I went with a more viable shotgun option. It's not another incendiary shotgun, no. It's the Stakeout, loaded with triple up buck, a horizontal leveler, an auto fire lock, LED combo, the drum mag, and I threw a -1 sight on there for my own convenience. That gives us more or less the same killing power as a fully loaded Yzma, but with 9 more shells in exchange for less concealment and a slightly lower rate of fire. This will do most of our heavy lifting and will be a very reliable tool for taking out enemies at close to medium range while we have enemies on fire or what have you. I don't usually run the Stakeout. It's fun. I usually just run the Yzma. But I've already got I already have a Russian auto shotgun. Let's run something different. For my melee, I went with the Ice Pick. Really, you could run any 450 charge damage melee in this build. We'll be using Molotovs and Light Ballistic Vest again. We'll be using Grinder again. I don't know why I'm saying. And again, our core skills start with Inspire and Combat Doctor Aced, but now we have Joker and Partners in Crime to increase my maximum health from 322 to about 419, which gives us a lot more breathing room. Next up, I've invested in Shotgun CQB, Impact, and Close By Aced with basic Overkill to give our shotguns more stopping power and less frequent reloads. We have roughly the same assortment of armor skills, Horrorcore Basic to move a little bit quicker, and then last one we have 9 lives, Swan Song, and Bloodthirst, all aced to give us a fighting chance should we go down as well, and that also gives us the ability to reload these usually much slower shotguns more rapidly once we've racked up a few kills. Both Flame Grinder and Flame Grinder 2.0 have a tough time with distant enemies, both use Grinder and both use the Swan Song skill, and that's about where the similarities end. Now we have a much more reliable incendiary shotgun. We have an actually easy way to deal with enemies like dozers and tasers. We've got much better pickup rates, and it's all just in a much easier to use build. Use the Grim to light crowds on fire when low on health, but otherwise stick to the Stakeout and clear a path. When a teammate goes down, you can either use a Molotov or your Grim to clean up the enemies around them to heal you, and then you can pick them up with a single tap of the interaction button, maybe a couple seconds of holding it if you're reviving back to back. But as long as you've made some grinder stacks in the past couple seconds, you'll passively restore more health while helping your buddy off the ground. This build works for what it is, and it's pretty dang fabulous. I brought this thing to Death Wish. It's pretty solid once you get your footing, but once again, definitely a no-go on Death Sentence, unless you really like camping behind countertops for 5 hours trying to build up enough health to take a single excursion to the other side of the map. Actually, just use Anarchist. It does the same thing, but gives you a ton of armor. You don't run Grinder on Death Sentence. And there we are, 2 Grinder builds that are far and away improvements from the types of builds I showed off last year. Grinder is a versatile deck for low accuracy, higher fire rate weapons, and it's still a ton of fun to run today. Not quite the game breaker it was in 2015, not quite the disaster it was in 2016. The perk deck found some really solid footing, and it takes to most things you throw at it. I hope I gave you ideas as to how to actually make the most out of Grinder, but either way, thanks for watching, and I'll see you around. If you like this video and you'd like to see more, I'd recommend subscribing. Patreon and social media links are in the description.